It is the New Year's Eve edition of Appraise This with Tim Luke and Greg Schraub, the appraisal guys, the frickin' frack of Nick and Knack. We join them, and by the way, you can find them at tqag.com. We join them now as they prepare for their huge New Year's celebration.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings.
So what do you guys got planned for tonight?
Well, we're going to Casa del Vino, our favorite local watering hole. It's a little Italian wine shop slash charcuterie, and we're going to be with just a handful of people, just up the road, so we don't have to drive very far. So we're looking forward to bringing in the new year and being home in bed by a little after midnight.
Well, and you guys don't even have to. You don't have to drive. You don't have to take a golf cart. You can probably walk to this place.
Well, we do have to drive. It's about 3 miles up the roads, but it's still we're not major New Year's revelers. Never have been. One of the reasons is because I'm not a night owl.
Well, anyways, Happy New Year's in advance.
Hey,
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
So now, it's a time where, and everybody looks back at the past year, and not only the past year, but like the past decade, because we're going into a new decade.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure for you guys and in the business you're in, even though appraising sounds like, appraisal is the same thing year, there's some pretty significant changes in the past 10 years.
Yeah, there have been. I don't want to say the rules, but the procedures have changed, and documentation, the way we get the documentation and do the documentation has changed for the better, because I think now people are beginning to realize that appraisers are actually professionals and not the redheaded stepchild at the family reunion. And
nothing against redheads.
Yes, nothing against redheads. But
there have been a lot of things that we found that have really shaped and changed the way that we look at value over the last 10 years. I mean, and I'm actually going to post it on my Facebook page, but there were some interesting things that made the top 20 for items that have sold over the last decade. And what's fascinating, what made the list, two of the items were from Julian's house that I was a part of. One was Ringo Starr's drum kit that sold for over $2 million. I think it was $2.2 million. And the other piece was the Marilyn Monroe's Happy Birthday, Mr. President gown, which sold for $4.8 million in 2016. So, I was really surprised when I looked at this list, the way that it was compiled. I thought, oh, this is great that they're also including popular culture and some of the other things, in addition to some of the other works of art that have sold over the course of the last 10 years, especially last year with the Salvator Mundi that sold for $500 million at Christie's. So, those really struck me a lot. Which one struck you, Greg?
Well, I think I still, even though it's a lot of money, I still think that for me personally, the Marilyn Monroe dress is my top pick, even though it wasn't as much as the Salvator Mundi, but it's such an iconic piece that has it's transcended more than one decade. It's transcended for over 50 years. This dress has been an iconic piece of our culture and our pop culture, and I think it will continue for possibly the next 50 years.
Oh, definitely.
I think I can't get that out of my head as like my top pick.
Right. Right, but really, it's not about the level. It's not about the value. I mean, it's not about the number. Oh, this sold for the most, so this has to be the most important. It isn't that. There was another one that I was surprised, and this I forgot about this. Was Audrey Hepburn's personal working script from Breakfast at Tiffany's, which sold in 2018 for $811,000. Which, just for a working script, I'm sure it had a lot of her handwritten personal notes and things like that, but also how beloved, not only the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, but also Audrey Hepburn, for that to sell at that level.
And I think I remember even speaking about this, and I forgot about it as well. And that was back in 2012. Do you realize we've been doing this now for over 10 years? Isn't that something?
Oh my God, we're getting old.
Yeah. It's a scary thing. Yeah, it's a very scary thing.
Let's not look at that. Let's look forward. Keep going forward.
I do remember talking about this on the show, and it was the Leica camera that sold for $2.8 million, which is a record for a camera that has yet to be beaten since then in 2012. Yeah. I can't imagine that record's going to fall very soon. But some of the other things that I just remember we talked about on the show was we talked about the most expensive diamond ever sold, which sold at Sotheby's in 2017, and I'd forgotten how much it had sold for, and it sold for $71.2 million.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the other ones that I know we talked about, and this was in 2017, it was the Hermes Birkin bag, and it was encrusted with 10.23 carats of diamonds. And that particular handbag, which was a record, and still I think holds the record, is it sold for $378,000 in 2017. And since that sale, and I remember because that was a big deal, Heritage Auctions has continued to really grow that market of handbags. So has a number of other auction houses where I've seen that they have put together these curated sales of these fashion handbags. And that whole market has really, that's a whole area that it might have been one or two in a sale, and now Heritage has a whole sale devoted to fashion accessories. So I these things change. These things change the way that people do their marketing. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
You mentioned curated sale, and that's one thing that is somewhat of a new. Well, I wouldn't say new, but it's relatively common now. Whereas it used to be you'd have one or two of these items in amongst a fashion sale. And I think whenever some of these items have sold for such tremendous amounts of money, somebody comes up with the idea, let's do a curated sale where it's just nothing. We'll research all of these items. We'll do one specific sale of nothing but this particular item. And I think that's becoming more popular and more common now, especially in the fashion area. So,
I just know from when I was working at the auction house in the 90s at Christie's, and we would get a collection and we would say, okay, yeah, we'll take everything and that's fine and we'll do this. Now, I think that it's more curated in the sense that a lot of auction houses have the opportunity to sell things online. So they will put here are maybe not the showstoppers, but these are still valid and viable and saleable. So let's put those online and let's put these other pieces into a sale where there's a number of these, so that it draws more of attention. And I think in the 90s they didn't have that luxury. No, we have to take everything. Okay, yeah, let's just get through this, or let's group lot a bunch of things. Now you're seeing more things going online and things that are the stars or the more desirable, those are going into the live auctions, which may also have which a lot of auctions do now, an online component. And I think because of that, that has opened up a whole host of bidding. And I think that as we look to the future, we're going to see more and more of that. And I think that we're going to see more advances with the way that they do their online, where the online experience for the individual is going to be so much better. And even though a number of auction houses charge like a 1%, 2%, 3% premium, if you're buying online, people will pay for that convenience because it's far less than trying to do all the travel and the expense of being out of the office or in a hotel and eating out and the meals and whatever it is. So I think that we're going to see more and more of changes in the online experience for the online bidder, and for good or for bad, whatever it is. But I think we're going to see more of that, and I think it'll be a game changer.
Do you think
one thing? Go ahead, Marshall.
Just one question for you guys. I guess 10, 12 years ago, what was the general consensus that online, that eventually it was going to hurt the auction business, and how did it turn out looking at it that way?
That was the comment I was going to make. I'm glad you brought it up, because we've talked about this several different times over the past decade, and when we first started, we were a little skeptical about how someone was going to sell a piece of art online. And over the years, all it takes is that 378,000 Birkin bag to sell online. All of a sudden, Birkin bags are, a lot of them are sold online. And the same thing now with the art. We never thought that would happen. And all it takes is one or two items to have stepped out of the box and sold online for this. And now it is common for pieces of contemporary art to sell for tremendous money online, and people are less afraid of buying art online, and people are less afraid of selling art online. It just depends on where it is, who it is, and we've talked about this in the past, and who is selling it. And one of the things that has changed over the decade is even auction houses are now being vetted by the people who are bidding on these high-price ticket items. So it used to be where, when some of the big auction houses who tried to dip their feet in the online auction business, they tried it, like Sotheby's, for example, tried at the very beginning, and they got out of it. Now, they're back, and they're back with a vengeance. And that's the one thing that has changed over this past decade, is the popularity of online auctions across the board for everything. And
it hasn't taken away from the people that love the thrill and the real, that like to go to these auctions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that will always, and I know we said this when we started talking about the online auctions, is that they will never get over. But I think, and I likened it to when television came in and radio, people thought, oh, radio is going to go away. Well, radio has morphed and changed and has to, because if it stayed the way that it was, it would have died. So now you have these podcasts, and you have, on-demand listening, and there's a lot of different things that radio has also gone through, which was a change. And you're going to see the same thing in the auction business, is that the online is going to morph into and change the way that the live auctions are done. Even the last sale that I did when I was out in California for Julian's, and that was, the one that just a month ago, and that was for the Sinatra sale. The very first, we started the sale, and there were nobody in the room, but there were a ton of people online and on the phones, and the bidding, did quite well. And then people started to stream in that were looky-loos, but they were also interested in bidding. So it does become, it's changing the way. And if this were 7 years ago, the owners of the auction house would be, oh my God, nobody's here, nobody's here. Is this going to be okay? You know, and they're a little on edge. This time, oh yeah, okay, no, we see how many people are online, the statistics, the data, everything that is being fed to the auction houses prior as to the number of people that are interested, that have looked at this. All of that information is really changing the way that auctions are being conducted. And I think that's fascinating. All right, so it'll be interesting.
All right. Well, we have about a minute left.
Yes.
Two big announcements. We're getting a puppy.
Yes.
I saw that. I saw that with a tear in my eye on Facebook.
Yes.
And the other big news is, speaking of podcast, I have decided to come into the 21st century. And as you've heard, a lot of us, or a lot of you, the listeners have heard over the years, I am also a certified personal chef. So now, and we've combined it with our fundraising as well. So now we're also doing culinary fundraising. And so I'm starting in the new year with a podcast called Perfectly Seasoned. And it's going to be my first venture into podcasting, and we'll see how that goes. And the new site will launch in January, and the podcast will begin at the end of January. And there'll be video recipes, video classes, and video demonstrations on posted on my website, The Silver Chef. And so that'll be that's a new something new in the decade, as I'm going into, as I call it, my third act. And we'll see how it goes. So I'm kind of excited about it. And I want to thank you, Marshall, for getting me started, because I'm sitting here with all of this equipment in front of me, and I look like your studio. So
I will be in touch with you probably around January 2nd, after we get past that first day of the new year, and we'll start working on the operation of that stuff.
Terrific. I'm looking forward to it. And in the meantime, I'm practicing.
All right.
So,
well,
I want to wish everybody a happy new year.
Yes,
and a happy
healthy, and prosperous decade coming up.
And a happy new year to you guys.
Thanks,
talk to you later.
Take care.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Tim, Luke, Greg Strom, the appraisal guys, the frickin' frack of Nick and Knack, TQAG.com on the web.